Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now. Wednesday, October the 12th, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith. And yesterday we saw hello to Vito, one of our rotating guests we'll have throughout the year. And we say hello to another one, someone who was on with us a bunch of times last year, DJ Mitchell, joining us today on the Wednesday show, ready to help us break down this 6-game NHL card. DJ, happy start of the hockey season to you, my friend.
Yes, it's probably my favorite time of the year for daily fantasy, and I don't like betting quite as much. I do a little bit because I think that there's some spots, but this is when you really get the galaxy brainers. You get the people that have no idea what they're doing, just entering complete randomness, and you can take advantage of it. So I primarily focus on daily fantasy, but I do think that there's an edge and I think every game at least has one or two spots that I'm pretty intrigued by. So we'll get to everything though.
Yeah, definitely we will. We'll break down the 6 games. Briefly, we'll touch upon what we saw in the 2 games last night. Great performance by the New York Rangers, Mika Zibanejad in particular, DJ Z-Bad, if you go by his DJ name when he was playing for the Senators, when he was at the clubs, throwing down a set list or two. But he was throwing down some beautiful moves and some great goals last night. Great shot, great release, great deep move, and a backhand roof job on the shorthanded goal to get things going for the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin looked like he was in mid-season form in net. It was just a real solid performance, and they really carried the play much of the night toward Tampa Bay, and they end up getting a nice victory in that game. Solid start to the year. And do we get concerned about Tampa Bay moving forward, that maybe it's just, you ease your way into the season? Kind of looked like that with that kind of lethargic, type of performance we saw from the Lightning last night in that game, and a really good second game of the doubleheader with Vegas and LA back and forth. It was really a good game, even in after the second period when it was 1-1. It was, you'd think, low scoring, not much is happening. That wasn't the case. It was a very good back and forth game. There were chances, good opportunity, good puck movement. I was very impressed with how Bruce Cassidy already had this Vegas team playing with great structure, something that I think was breaking down for them toward the end of last year. I thought they jumped their defensemen into the play, which was nice to see. They had net drive. That's something Bruce Cassidy said in his post-game press conference after that win. They had players going to the net looking for loose pucks. It's funny because in that press conference last night after that victory over the LA Kings, Bruce Cassidy said there was a couple things they did early in the game that some of his players did, called it a little bit of old habit. He's what he said. It's almost like, more like shit coaching from Peter DeBoer, right? That's really what it was, a little bit of old habit, trying to get away from some of those tendencies they had under Peter DeBoer when this team completely, obviously collapsed down the stretch last year. I think the best attribute of that win, not only finding a way, they responded every time LA scored. Mark Stone, who didn't play his best, I think he was hurt last year. His offense dried up, and then he got the game winner last night. But it was Jack Eichel. He was all over the ice. He had that chance in the first period that he breakaway. He shot over top of the net. And then, of course, he ended up getting one of the goals early in the third period to make it 2-1, get the Golden Knights rolling in that game. So it was a nice win for Vegas, and they win in Bruce Cassidy's debut. And a great job, by the way, by the broadcast. ESPN did a nice job with the 2 broadcasts last night. It was just funny to see, though. Poor Leah Hextall. She can't catch a break, right? 10 minutes into the friggin' season, into that game, and there's already people saying how she's annoying them. It didn't take long for that band to start playing their music, so to speak. But a very good, fun, exciting opening night of hockey. Alex, what did you think of last night?
Yeah, it was an entertaining night. It wasn't the most profitable night for me. I lost my over 5.5 best bet on the Rangers and Lightning, and Igor Shesterkin was just masterful. I mean, if he can play like that, 50, 55 times a year, he's definitely going to be a Vezina winner and more than likely, like I said, leading this team. I feel that this is a team that's built to win a cup. And this is just night one. Obviously, you don't want to jump the gun, but they look really good. And you knew they were going to be fired up playing Tampa Bay after the way the postseason ended. And you look at the Lightning, we called it. They look kind of lethargic right now and very conservative and timid. And so that's something that you're going to, have to keep in mind at least the next month and a half when looking at this Tampa Bay Lightning team. It's not even going to be the kind of freewheeling hockey that we're seeing from them, previous years. Okay, yeah, they struggled early or, they're a bit, jet lagged from the postseason. but at least they were scoring goals left and right. They don't look like the team that can score 5 or 6 goals a night like they did in previous years. They look like they're going to try to win games 3-2, 4-2, grind you down. They're almost going to take their playoff style of hockey and kind of use that format into the season. I don't know how that's going to really work for them early in the year, because that wears on you as well. And, like I said, the third period, it was 5 minutes left. They were gassed. They were gassed as if they had been playing, 3 games in 4 nights. And that was a really big glaring sign for me. So I'm going to be looking to fade Tampa Bay a couple more times, probably within the next week or two. The other game with Vegas and LA, and I was really close to making it. This is my best bet, actually, with the draw at plus 330. Looked like it was about to sail in, and then all of a sudden you see Vegas with 20 seconds left. Basically turn my head and turn back to the TV and see that they scored, make it 4-3. So great game. Jonathan Quick still looked pretty good. The goals that he got beat on were goals that, no one was going to save. So, I think rumors of his demise have been exaggerated a little bit. He's still got something left in the tank. And Vegas, if they can get, Phil Kessel being the facilitator, I think that's going to be a really big thing for his game. And Vito kind of talked about that too, that, he's still got hands. And not only can he put the puck in the back of the net, but he can definitely set up guys around him. That's going to be his biggest strength with Vegas right now. And, if they can get some solid goaltending from Thompson, maybe they're one of those teams that they'll be a good bet on team. I still think they fall short of making the playoffs eventually, but I think they're going to be a team definitely that's just going to be competitive and kind of, one of those teams just hang around every night, and you'll be able to get some good value on them.
Yeah, you hit on an excellent point, Alex, about Tampa. I mean, when they were down 3-1 in that game, did you see any sort of push? Did you see any sort of them?
No urgency.
Like big hornet's nest around Shesterkin, and they're swarming the Ranger net at any point? No, you really didn't see them really mount that kind of push when they were down by 2 goals in the third period. It's concerning for sure, and it makes you wonder, is the gas tank already running on E for them? And you're right, stretch pass goes awry for Vegas or for LA there, and it's turned over in the neutral zone, and that led to the Mark Stone goal to win it 4-3 in that one late for the Vegas Golden Knights in that one, but a solid victory for them in that one, and we'll see if Vegas can build on that. DJ, just some opinions from you, what you saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think for betting and fantasy is penalties were way up still. There was a ton of penalties both ways. That's what kept Tampa in the game. That's why.
I couldn't believe it, DJ. Scotty Upshaw, who does the Missing Curfew podcast, he says, great night of hockey. Great. It's nice to see the refs put their whistles away. What are you talking about? What games were you watching?
Yeah, see, it really did seem too like, I mean, we always talk about what's the best indicator of a penalty or a team getting a power play. Did they just take a penalty? And we just kept seeing that over and over again. Sometimes it was obvious. I mean, we saw, a guy come out of the box, right? I think Tampa or the Red, doesn't matter. And I just immediately high six the guy in the face. And it's like, all right, sometimes it's not the refs, what are they going to do? I didn't think there was anything egregious either. I just think that they're calling it exactly how they see it. I don't think there were any missed calls. They're just calling everything. It was good to see for fantasy. And it's why, if you look through the minutes, you'll see the Rangers and Tampa had all their top guys get a ton of run. With Tampa, even more than anyone else, their 5-on-5 minutes for Kucherov, Point, and Stamkos are pretty staggering. 24 for each of them. And I think that's going to move forward because their depth is just that bad. The Rangers, if you look at shot tides and different other visualizations, you just see that it correlates exactly to when that line was off the ice. Rangers just absolutely pounced on them. And the Rangers' depth just won that game. I was worried about that game for many reasons. I didn't end up betting anything but Braden Point to have his shots and stuff because it just seemed like the one misprice. But that game went about as expected. I just worry that Shesterkin regression could happen, and it just didn't happen yet, and maybe it won't happen. And Vasilevsky was awesome. The second game, the better game, Jonathan Quick, better than expected. Again, my concern was the goaltending. I liked the over, and I just couldn't get there. And I just kept thinking, it's like, am I really? I felt like I was betting the over just to bet something, and then it shouldn't have hit. It felt like, but it did. So a lot of people in the community, I know did well on that. That game as well was Vegas is shooting from everywhere, and the number one thing for me, I know we talk about Phil Kessel look good, but he actually freaking backchecked. Maybe Bruce Cassidy just has these boys going. They have a great defense. They have seemingly buy-in. I don't think Logan Thompson is great. I think he's borderline replaceable level, and maybe, they'll end up looking to make a move somewhere. But if they have everyone bought in and Bruce Cassidy as a coach, I think they're just going to be really, really good. So I like that. I had Eichel for a point. I had Eichel for shots. Those hit, and Fiala was the miss. That was the one guy that I kind of pegged as they're pricing him as if he's still line 2 at Minnesota, and now he's line 1 power play 1. I thought he looked pretty good. He had the tertiary assist, didn't quite get me the actual assist, but that was the one big miss for me. I had him in a couple parlays for shots over 2.5, and he only had 2. I thought he had a third at the end there. He put one right at the net. They didn't award him the shot. What are you going to do? You move on. But nothing other than the penalties being called. And that's why tonight, I think for DraftKings, I guess I'll just give my one note for if you're making lineups. I'm not afraid to game stack any of the main games. Probably wouldn't actually play Chicago as a bring back against not even because I think Chicago is inherently like unusable in daily fantasy. It's just because they're priced way out of consideration. They're priced as if, I mean, they're like, you're gonna play Patrick Kane over like Evander Kane. Like, are you kidding me? Like, probably not. They're like the same price. So, but I think that like going with a game stack mentality, taking Toronto and Montreal, taking Vancouver as a bring back against McDavid. Like, I think that's really, really going to be sharp tonight because people just won't do it. They're going to try to spread the wealth. Like, there's 4 or 5 really good spots. How can I get pieces of all of those spots? And maybe one of these games gets a ton of penalties, a ton of minutes to the top guys, and all the points come through there. I think it's going to be more unique. So that's kind of how I'm attacking. Just try to use the game theory against other people. But we can get to the game. I just wanted to give that note.
Yeah, and a great mention of Phil Kessel. You mentioned how, he was back checking, great defensive. That one defensive shift is about as dog. And I said this on Twitter last night during the game. It's about as dogged and determined I've ever seen him work away from the puck and defensively. It's like you chalk up a W already for Bruce Cassidy. He's getting this kind of defensive effort night 1 out of Phil Kessel. I mean, holy goodness, what a job! And he was, took the puck away, got a takeaway defensively during that shift. It was great to see it. Loved it. Hopefully he keeps on doing that for the Vegas Golden Knights, no question. Hopefully we keep on providing some winners here on the Ice Guys show. What a great night with the props in the second game. The first game, not so much because it was a little lower scoring, and the 2 Ranger goals were 2 of the 3 goals were Zibanejad in that game for the Rangers. We didn't have him, but the LA game, I mean, Kaliev at plus 460 goal scorer prop. Cashes, Gabe Velarde plus 400 goal scorer prop cashes. So, and of course we had Kempe, we had Eichel. It was a really good game for player props last night with the Golden Knights and the Kings. All right, let's get to Wednesday's action. We will start with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina up to minus 280. I say up to minus 280 because they opened minus 210. Huge move toward the Hurricanes here, minus 280, and a big move on the total as well. This was 6. For basically the last few weeks since the opening games of the season were posted at all the different sports books. But now it's 6.5 across the board. And I think a lot of this is the reaction to the Elvis Merzlikins news that he is out tonight for the Columbus Blue Jackets, under the weather, not starting for the Blue Jackets tonight. And as a result, Daniil Tarasov is going to get the opening night assignment here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And a goalie that when you look at his play, not so good last year when he was getting duty in the regular season for the Columbus Blue Jackets. A guy that, from all indications, didn't have a great training camp or preseason either for the Jackets. And this is going to be a team, when you look at this roster, they have a potential to be a very good scoring team up front. They bring in, of course, Johnny Gaudreau. Boone Jenner, now the new captain of the team, will center that top line with Gaudreau and Laine. What a line that could possibly be. You've got Voracek, who I think he had 50, 60 assists last year. He showed you he can still be an elite playmaker. Doesn't give you many goals anymore, but he can still play make at a very high level. Roslovic had a crazy second half of the year last year offensively. And playing with them on that second line this is no joke, the league-leading preseason goal scorer, Igor Shinnikov, here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that's a little hint about player props for this game right there. Igor Shinnikov, who's going to play on that second line, who was terrific in the preseason with 6 goals, 1 assist, 7 points in 6 preseason games for the Jackets. Very well deserving a top 6 forward role to begin the year. Cole Sillinger centering the third line with Justin Danforth, Gus Nyquist, Eric Robinson, Sean Corrali, Matthew Olivier, I should say, rounding out the forward group. Werenski, Boquist, Gavrikov, Peak, Bean, Goodbranson banged up, so we might see Blankenberg, the Michigan product, instead. But the point I'm trying to make with Columbus is they've got a great forward group, but look at these forwards. A lot of them aren't great defensively away from the puck. They're not two-way forwards. They're not defensive-minded forwards. And the blue line is a blue line that obviously had their share of problems last year as well defending. And I don't know if it's leaps and bounds better. And now you've got Tarasov, who's an unproven goalie who didn't play well in the preseason. It's going to be a rough night defensively for Columbus, but they're going to be capable of scoring goals. Can they do so against Carolina, who we know the last few years have been an elite defensive team, one of the league leaders in goals against in the NHL? The main loss for them in the offseason was Nino Niederreiter. He's gone, but you've still got Teravainen, Aho, Jarvis, which is going to be a terrific top line. You know me with my Seth Jarvis props last year, how many times we backed that guy. Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi moving up to the second line, and moving to the country, gonna meet me Marty Necas. Marty Necas on the second line for the Hurricanes to begin the year. If Kotkaniemi can bounce back, if that can be a solid line, but that's putting a lot on his plate. Let's see if he can earn it for Rod Brindamore, Stastny, Stahl, Fost, Martinuk, Stepan, Kasha, who is a good player but never can stay healthy on that fourth line. The blue line's fine. Slavin, they bring in Brent Burns, of course, in the offseason. Brady Shea, Calvin DeHaan, Chatfield. There could be some shakeup with the blue line. Brett Pesce was dealing with the injuries, but it looks like he'll be in tonight for the Jackets. Good to go for tonight's game. So I like the over. I bet it was one of the first bets I made, really, of the NHL season in terms of these individual games, was the over in this game, because I wanted to bet Columbus over the total early in the season. They're going to be, I think, a great over team with Gaudreau there now, with a great forward group, and be able to find the back of the net. But their defensive deficiencies are still there in spades. Not a lot of forwards that are good back checkers and two-way attention to detail type players. The blue line's below average defensively, and now you've got Tarasov in net. So Carolina should be able to score some goals, but I think Columbus is good enough offensively. Look, Freddie Anderson going to be in net here for Carolina. Hasn't played in a while, because of the injuries he had late last year. He could be a little bit shaky out of the gate. So I like goals in this one, even at 6.5. We'll go ahead, recommend over the total with the Jackets and the Hurricanes. Alex, what do you like here? You're muted.
There we go. Got that. All right.
First time.
Yeah, right. First of many for sure. But yeah, I liked over 6. I grabbed that a week ago, and I liked it just off of the fact that, like you said, the styles of these two teams, and historically we've seen the under come in for the last 5 meetings. But when you look at Carolina, it's a lot like what I said yesterday with Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers. Those are teams that play kind of low and slow hockey in the postseason. And I think that people kind of look at that and say, oh, that's just what they do. It's like, no, they change and adapt styles. That's the reason why I like Carolina so much, because they're one of those teams that can adapt and play any way that you want to play. If they want to go up and down the ice, if they want to, check hard and skate and grind things out, they can do both ways. And this definitely seems like a game that was going to fly back and forth. And now you got Tarasov, who I'm going to update the goalie charts on patreon.com/iceguys as soon as we're done with the show. But I have him as a big drop-off to Merzlikins. And Jet Greaves is now going to be the backup as well. So, because you're already dealing with Korpisalo being out. So you're using your third and fourth string goalies at the beginning of the season against a Carolina team that can really, like I said, go up and down with you and get a bunch of goals. I like 6.5 as well. I would say wait for 6 to pop up live if you didn't already grab 6 before. There's just no reason, even at plus 110, I just feel more comfortable getting a 6 rather than the 6.5. But I think this should go over both of those numbers, to be honest. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, it should be a very fun game. Prop wise, I took a flop. Like, maybe you're just putting your money in the incinerator and lighting it on fire, betting on anyone but Austin Matthews to win the Rocket Richard. But I did take, Patrick Laine at 50-1 to win the Rocket Richard, just because he's going to have Johnny Gaudreau feeding the pucks on his tape night in and night out, and that could make Patrick Laine just explode in terms of goal scoring this year. So I thought it was worth a flyer anyway for the Rocket with Patrick Laine, who I like to score a goal tonight at a good plus price. Shinnikov, absolutely. It's probably my favorite player prop on the Columbus side is Shinnikov. And I'm going to be backing my guy Seth Jarvis for Carolina, no question about that. And Carolina probably worth a look here with some props as well against, like I said, this subpar Columbus D. What do you think here, DJ? Jackets, Hurricanes?
Yeah, not a ton of props posted for this game. It's kind of been waiting all day for this game to give us a little bit more action. I kind of agree with everything you said. I mean, it's the Corsi Canes. It's Brent Burns on the Corsi Canes on the first power play. I mean, not completely confirmed, but from someone I know that works for the Canes, it should be Jarvis, Aho, Teravainen, Kakaniemi in that front. Burns, and who's the other? I might be Kakaniemi. I think that's net front on the first unit, but it's not. It still sounds like it's not Svechnikov on the first power play unit, which is disappointing, but it will be Jarvis. He is, I mean, if you're playing DraftKings, you're making lineups, he is like 3,400, absolute like best price in the entire slate. I can't find him for a point prop yet, but that's okay. I think that the best two props, I really like Sebastian Aho shot prop over 2.5. I just think that line's going to dominate wherever they go up against. They have the home matchups to get them against any other line besides the top line, which I don't even think is going to be great defensively. Like Gaudreau is so good that he can make up for not being good defensively, but Laine, I don't think can. He's just really going to be a goal scorer and a rate shooter. And Boone Jenner's fine, but they'll get away from them. Aho in the preseason was the guy that was shooting. I mean, if you look at, I don't like to use preseason as a big indicator. It was 2 games, but he was absolutely firing in both of them. So maybe they're going to try to open him up more. That's just kind of, I'd rather get to him early because we know the rates can come with him. It's just like, he's one of those players that's so skilled that it's like, does he want to shoot? Like if you watch him play, you'll be like, why didn't you shoot that? Because he sees the game differently. So I just think that in this scenario, when they have the backup goalie, they will be shooting. And therefore I'm going to bet on Aho over 2.5. And then Brent Burns, anytime point -130. Again, Corsi Canes, Brent Burns is still Brent Burns. Like he's not in the Sharks anymore. Unleash Brent Burns. Those are the two that I like off the cuff. I've also talked ad nauseum about Chinnikov. He beat out Emil Benstrom, which I feel like was maybe not surprising as much as it was just so blatantly obvious. And like both of them look good. They both had goals in preseason, but they needed that secondary scorer to make the team. And he just won. So I'm a huge fan of him. I'm not sure if I'm going to be betting him too much tonight just because it's the Corsi Canes. I worry that they're not going to have a ton of good opportunity, even though they lose a guy like Trocheck. I still think Paul Stastny can play, almost like Peter Stastny. I got confused there. But so I just don't know if I want to be taking a lot of my money and putting it on any Blue Jackets because they might just not have a ton of volume here. But yeah, those are really the only 2 bets. And then if you missed the over, you missed it. Maybe if it keeps going up, you could bet the under because I just don't see the Blue Jackets scoring a ton here. So you're really just, I don't know. I think the under could end up getting there. Like I don't think this game is really right on like a 6.5 for me. That's my, let me double check my math. I'm almost positive it is just like right on the, I think it's just under 6.5. What is it? 6.08 is my projected goal. So, I mean, you can, it's again, like it's not an eighth of a goal. So you're kind of just saying like, is there going to be that last, goal in and the goalies are bad. So I don't think there's an edge on that. I definitely don't think there's an edge on either side because I do think that the Blue Jackets are a better team than people give credit for, but not with this goalie. So I'm just going to take some props and move on and definitely play Jarvis in daily fantasy.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue for Columbus. They're above average offensively. They're below average defensively. They're potentially well below average defensively. So that's going to be what they have to overcome.
They need some growth from some guys for sure. I do think Bean is a good player. I do think Boqvist is a really good player. I know he comes over from Chicago, so you saw him play, and it's just like, do they grow with Werenski and find a way to be guys that can move the puck offensively, move the puck out of the zone because their other defenders are just more defenders. Gavrikov and how you even think about saying his name off the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about. If we're going to start talking about fourth defenders, we can probably move on. That's I think.
And DJ, you mentioned it too. That's going to be the plight all year when you take player props with any player against Carolina, any team from the opponent of Carolina. You cannot get points, you cannot get goals, you cannot get shots on goal if you don't have the puck. And that's always going to be Carolina is great at just possessing the puck and not letting you have it. Very often. So
not the team to build a ladder against. If you're laddering shots, they're not the team to go with against. Yeah, they're just not gonna allow. And which is again the last note is like always hard for me to get a save prop with Carolina because if the game doesn't go right, it's never going to get there. And they might lower it as the year goes on, so maybe it's worth an underlook, but I don't know. I don't even think they posted it yet for any of the games on DraftKings. Yeah, they got nothing for goalies. Why would I? I'm not surprised.
All right, next up, we've got Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals. The Capitals here, -140, home favorite, 6 the total. The Sillinger's the other guy I forgot to mention for Columbus. Sprinkle on him too, because he had a good preseason. And now with Kent Johnson sent down, it's going to mean more time for him for the Jackets tonight, at least for tonight. In this game, look, one of the things I'm going to work on this year as a host of the Ice Guys show is not becoming a babbling brook when I don't have a strong opinion on certain games. And this is one I don't have a strong opinion on. This is fade versus fade for me. I'd rather really go against both of these teams rather than bet on them right now. Both of them are banged up going into this season opener. We know with the Boston Bruins, it's Charlie McAvoy, it's Matt Grzelcyk starting the year out for the Bruins, although there's some hope that both of them may not be quite out for as long a period of time as they initially thought. Anton Strawman, veteran defenseman that they picked up in the offseason, he has got some crossing the border visa issues right now, so that's the issue for him holding up his debut with the Bruins. And of course, you've got Brad Marchand on IR, 1/3 of the great, quote unquote, one of the best lines in the NHL. Him and Pasternak and Bergeron. Marchand will be out. But good news is at least Taylor Hall's good to go because he had an injury that he suffered, but he'll be taking that spot with Montgomery here, the new head coach, Jim Montgomery for the Bruins, is going with Bergeron, DeBrusk, and Hall as the top line. Pavel Zacha, who they got from New Jersey, will play with Krejci, who's back with the team after a sojourn in Europe, and Pasternak on the second line. AJ Greer's someone that actually turned some heads in preseason, especially offensively. This guy's had a couple of goals in one of the preseason games. AJ Greer, he'll be playing with Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith, who, again, are as streaky as it gets offensively for the Bruins. And then Foligno, Tomas Nosek, and Jacob Lauko rounding it out on the fourth line. Lindholm, Carlo, Riley, Clifton, decent top four. It's just the Forbert and Jakob Zaboral is where you're going to see the drop-off here with no McAvoy, no Strawman, or no, I should say McAvoy and no Grzelcyk to begin the season. But Washington's got their share of issues too. You know, we've got no Tom Wilson to begin the year. We don't know when or even if at this point Nick Backstrom's going to come back. His situation is looking more and more grave, more and more serious. And Carl Hagelin also on IR to begin the year. So they're down some key artillery up front. Didn't love the way this blue line played last year with Fehervari and Carlson, Jensen, not bad. Orlov's probably the best defensive-minded defenseman they've got. TVR and Gustafsson kind of struggled at times their own end. Kemper comes over from Colorado, had a great regular season last year, but Darcy Kemper ain't going to have Colorado's blue line, ain't going to have a team that's going to possess the puck 80% of the game either, like Colorado. Washington won't be that kind of team, so he's going to see more rubber, he's going to see more shots, he's going to see his team in the D zone a lot more than Colorado, so get ready for that. So pass for me. I really don't have a big take on this game, side or total, and I'd just rather go against these teams. There's no reason for me to get involved backing either one because I'd rather go against them right now. Alex, what do you think here, Bruins-Capitals?
So this is another one I played a couple weeks ago before the line move, and I anticipated it because at that point Taylor Hall was considered week to week, and the Grzelcyk news had broke. So I got Capitals minus $1.20. We saw it balloon up to 140. Couple of shops have $1.35, $1.33. So if you look at that, I would slightly recommend that maybe for a half unit. But I played the Caps mainly because, like I said, I'm fading Boston a lot more than Washington this year. I think Boston takes a huge downturn. But like you said, you mentioned the guys that they're out with injury, but just the way that they've played, late last year and then in the playoffs, they just seem really lethargic. And the same can be said for Washington as well. They're the oldest team in the league. And they've had health issues as well. I just think that in a one-game set, I like Washington here in this spot, but these are two teams that I probably won't be betting on a heck of a whole lot. Also, Washington has won 13 of the last 19 meetings against the Bruins at home. So this has been a house of horrors for the Bees. I think that's going to continue. So I like Washington here to get the win tonight. All
right, liking the Capitals here as the home favorite in this one. This is the first TNT doubleheader of the season for their Wednesday night doubleheaders get going tonight. They'll have this game as their first game up. DJ, what are you thinking here, Boston, Washington?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that this is a tough one to feel really good about. And I think early on, my problem with betting or maybe overstocking my card might be is that a term people use in the betting? I don't know. But my problem is that, like, we really don't exactly know what to expect with either of these teams. We don't even really know what Washington's first power play is going to look like exactly yet. Boston, it's kind of like back to the old, but are these old guys going to come back in and be super useful? I feel like I want to take Boston at plus 120. I think that that's a totally justifiable line. I think that Ullmark is a really good goalie. I think Kemper's a good goalie too, though. I think I'm a little bit above what the the status quo is on those two guys. So I think they're both fine. I'm probably not going to get there just because I feel like you can attack this game differently and still get a good bit of edge, I guess, in different ways. And I normally end up going to player props regardless, but if I had to, I would say that Boston plus 120 is totally fine to bet. But I'd rather just go through what I know and go through a guy like Pastrnak, who is just clearly going to be the guy they want shooting the puck. Him and Bergeron, both of them. Like, I think that this is a game where if you're going to build a ladder, Pastrnak, Ovi, Bergeron are just so obvious as guys to attack if you're going to do like a 4-shot on goal for all three of them, because those are just far and away the guys they want shooting the puck in every avenue. You look at that first power play unit. Lindholm, never been a rate shooter as a defenseman. He's clearly just going to be moving the puck as best he can. You have Krejci, who was never a rate shooter. He goes overseas, he comes back. He's clearly not going to start picking up a ton of shots. He's going to be tipping the puck, and if it's in tight, he'll try to jam it home. That's the only way he's going to score. There's no Marchand. That just takes away the only other real big rate shooter. So unless if Taylor Hall is going to jump in and get back to his old form, which I just don't expect, it's going to be Bergeron and Pastrnak taking the majority of shots, and they're so skilled and talented, and they should be able to have possession enough against what I think is a weaker, Capitals down the line core, which will just end up seeing some minutes against both of these guys, that I could really convince myself that these two guys could both go over 5, both go over on 4. And I think it's, it's hard because they don't play on the same line together, but I guess you could also, swing that the other way with taking a prop and saying that, like, well, then they can't both shoot at the same time on the ice together. So and then just this Capitals team, I don't think is great. I think they are going to be petering right on the playoff line, but what is their main purpose this year? It's to keep Ovi going, to get into 50 goals. I mean, this is not going, they're just not going to get there. I don't think there's any scenario where they are the best team in the Metro, or even a top 2, maybe 3 team in the Metro. Ovi's going to be shooting the puck. They're going to feed him. He is still their guy. Backstrom, I would be kind of surprised if he ever, maybe if he plays again all season. Oshie's questionable. I keep an eye on what goes on with him. I don't know if we have a hard and fast news on there. So who's going to be shooting the puck? Who's going to be, the focal point? I just think that there's a really easy case to make that there's 3 guys that are so far and above the rest in this game that you could capture quite a bit more coin just by hoping all 3 of them hit together. Because I do think that there's bad defense as well. Like, think about both these teams. I think that's the one thing that we kind of touched on, not even like focusing on it, but all just kind of individually touched on. It's like defensemen are missing. But look at Washington. It's like, well, after Carlson, it's like, what do they got? Orlov's is not great last year. He was fine, serviceable. They lose Justin Schultz. Again, not a big deal, but who steps in? I just don't think that either of these teams have very good defenses, and they will allow shots. So I think that this game will potentially have upside. I think that 6, I believe it is at right now, is like exactly where it should be as a coin flip. So you're telling me there's probably going to be about 6 goals. The goaltenders are okay. I think there's just going to be a lot of shots. Both teams trying to feed the right guys. So I'm going to go that way. I'm going to build a ladder in this game. DraftKings is now offering that, but you can't take them in the same game. So I'll go over on FanDuel and do that myself. Pasta, Ovi, Bergeron, probably for 4 and 5, put like $10 on it, and have a chance at making a ton of money if that all hits together.
Well, the good news is it's free reign now. Now that we're with a new platform here on the Ice Guys, we're not just propping up DraftKings every day on the show. We're spreading the wealth now. And FanDuel, you're right, for laddering props, like you said, shots on goal. You want to stretch it to 3+ shots, 4+ shots. You want to build those ladders, get those big plus prices, go for those big paydays. FanDuel's a great book for that.
I mean, shots can lead to more shots. Just like if you watch a hockey game, I know I hate these terms, but the one thing is, like, when teams are getting more risky and they're allowing more opportunities, that's to get them on their own. So if the game just starts flowing that way, where the teams open up and they loosen up and they start going, especially with the top 6 being really the only useful avenues for both of these teams, if they start trading chances, you're just going to be able to take. I'll type it in. I'll type it in really quick on FanDuel, because like I said, I can't. I'll see what the payout is. I'll just do $10. What it would pay out if all 3 of those guys get 4 shots, and I'll report back in a minute.
Yeah, and you can find if some of those come through for you, like you can get some great prices on some of those, especially if you think it's going to be a high volume shot game. Speaking of which, we might have one here: Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens. Leafs -245, road favorites in this game, 6.5 being the total across the board. I ended up going over 6.5 here as a bet. Montreal, the question is, can Montreal chip in? Now, again, you don't want to be prisoner of the moment, of a preseason moment, but I just really don't know how this team's going to defend anybody with offense, with elite level offense, elite level forwards. I really don't know how Montreal is going to keep the puck out of the net. And keep in mind, too, it's not just the blue line that bothers me. And what makes this worse for Montreal is the one guy I really like on this team is the guy they got from Pittsburgh in the Petrie deal, Mike Matheson. All right. And guess what? He's out tonight. He's not going to be in the lineup and on the ice for Montreal. So you've got to go to war with Caden Goalie and David Savard, as your top D pair, trying to take care of Matthews, Marner, and Michael Bunting. That's going to be quite the challenge for those two guys. Johnny Kovacevic, Jordan Harris, Chris Weidman, who's been bounced around from team to team now the last few years. And I liked him I'm a big Hamilton Bulldog. I'm a Hamilton guy, the Hamilton Bulldogs. I cheer for them. He was great for us in the junior ranks. And that's, of course, Arbor Jackeye. And I am extremely happy to see him make the team. Not only make the team, he's playing on the second friggin' pair for the Montreal Canadiens on their blue line. That's phenomenal. The kid has worked his ass off to get to this point. Told he's not good enough, not drafted. Work on your game, get better. And he did that. And he's found a way to put himself in the lineup by being physical, being a shutdown defenseman, dropping the gloves, sticking up for teammates, doing everything you can. You do all those little things, all those intangibles when you are just working your back off to get into the NHL. And that's what Arbor Jackeye has done for Montreal. And credit to him. That was all blood, sweat, and tears. That was all hard work and, just finding a way to get yourself into the NHL. So credit to him for doing that. But still going to be for him and that entire blue line a difficult chore tonight against the Leafs, who we were worried about John Tavares coming into the year. Would he be healthy? He is. So he resumes his spot on the second line center as the second line center between William Nylander and Dennis Mulligan, who's one of my favorite player props tonight. I shit you not. This guy, I don't know what happened in the preseason. This guy was totally and utterly useless the last time he was with Toronto. It was a couple of years ago. He did absolutely nothing, and they punted on him. It was brutal. They actually got him in the freaking trade that sent Mason Marchment to Florida. And I'm thinking, what a disaster. Toronto gave up Marchment for this stiff. It's not doing anything. He's floating around out there. Can't find him with a telescope on the ice. Dennis Mulligan wasn't doing anything, not a thing for this hockey team. Sure enough, they cut him. They don't want him back. He goes to Europe. He's lighting it up there, Dennis Mulligan. And so they sign him, Toronto, in the offseason. They bring him back. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. They're bringing Mulligan back. He did nothing for this team 2 years ago. Now he had a nice little flurry of offense in Europe here. He's all of a sudden going to make it work at the NHL level. I got to see it before I believe it. But sure enough, in the preseason, he looked great. Absolutely, for this Leaf team. And you got to give him credit for that. His numbers in the preseason off the chart. 5 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. 8 points in the 5 preseason games for Toronto. He's going to be playing on the second line role. He's got to be someone you consider in terms of player props to score a goal, to get a point, playing with Tavares and Nylander on that second line. No question about that. So, now it's just a question of, does it translate to the regular season, what he did in the preseason? Obviously, you're playing with good players. You're playing against a team that's probably going to struggle to keep the puck out of their own net much of the season in Montreal. So there should be opportunity. And it's funny, the Leaf fans and the Leaf media here, because he had 8 points and he's lighting it up in the preseason, you know what they're calling him now? Geno Mulligan. Geno Mulligan. Obviously a Geno Malkin. We know how good he is with Pittsburgh. Let's calm down. I mean, we don't expect him to score like Evgeny Malkin. It's a clever nickname, but let's see if he can do it in the regular season. But I'll take a shot that he can tonight. Dennis Mulligan, certainly player prop-wise worth a look. Engvall, Kerfoot. Yarncroke is someone that really played well in the preseason as well for Toronto. Sheldon Keefe's already happy with what he delivers to this team, both sides of the puck. Zach Aston Reese, Camp, Obey Kubel. Camp centering the hyphenateds, as I like to call it, Aston Reese and Obey Kubel. The blue line, Riley, Brody, Muzzin, Hall, Giordano. Rasmus Sandin is now signed and back on that starting blue line for the Leafs. I actually think it's one of their better blue lines in years. to be quite honest. Now, does it measure up with some other teams? No, but it's the best the Leafs have had the last few years. The question is going to be in net. Murray and Samsonov. Murray looked good in the preseason. Samsonov looked good in the preseason when they got in there. But let's see what happens in the regular season. I think at home, Montreal offensively with Caulfield, who's a good prop on the Montreal side, in my opinion. He was lighting it up in the preseason as well. They are worth finding the back of the net here. Montreal certainly can at least a couple of times. Toronto gets you the rest, and that's why I like this game over the total here, Leafs and Habs. Alex, what do you think here, Toronto-Montreal?
Yeah, this is was a bit odd because that Bet Online, which is one of the books I use, they hung a 7 on this, and it's still there. It's been there for about over a week. And I thought that's awfully high because Montreal, he said they don't have the same kind of scoring prowess that Toronto does, but and I'm seeing it in the chat as well. Toronto, they struggled against Montreal. They struggled against Ottawa, teams that have been bad for years. But, for some reason, when they play them, those other teams seem to get jazzed up for the Leafs because it's a Leafs town first and foremost. It's basically Leafs country when you think about it in some ways. And so, I think the Habs and Sens, they take kind of exception to that and they play a little bit better. So we could see Montreal out, first game of the season, maybe get a little jazzed up early. And then, of course, reality kind of, comes crashing in, and then we see the Leafs kind of run away with it. So that's the way I'm looking at this. I'm probably going to take a first period over live. I'm seeing 2s pretty much everywhere, but I think we can get a live price anywhere around 140 or cheaper at 1.5. I'll take a look for that. I think you can see maybe Toronto try to, control and possess the puck a little bit early. They're not just going to just freewheel it right away. I think they're going to try to, be a little bit more systematic. Like you mentioned, guys like Calle Jarnkrok, great two-way forward, adding that much-needed defensive depth that they need, not just on the blue line, but they need some good defensive forward play as well, and he's going to bring that to this Leafs lineup this year. So it should be an interesting game to watch, but I'm going to only just look for a live spot with the first period over, nothing pregame and nothing on the side.
All right, nothing pregame here for Alex. Yeah, I guess this is the chance for Kyle Dubas to make right the Mason Marchment trade. That was a horrible trade. When Malkin flopped the first time with Toronto and they gave Mason Marchment away in that trade, and look what he did in Florida. It was a coming out party for him, and now, of course, he's in Dallas. I thought, my gosh, what a horrible trade. But they brought him back, and he looked good. And he looked not just good. He looked great in the preseason, Dennis Mulligan. So let's see if he can translate it now to the games that count. What do you think here, DJ, Leafs and Habs?
Yeah, no, I think you guys covered this pretty well. This is the first test of a math versus brain, I think, for me, because I think the math here kind of leads to if you especially if you get a plus money. I think I found it for -105. I think the Habs plus 1.5 is really, really justifiable and kind of juicy for some of the reasons you guys said. But I just think that this team can score. But part of me just wants to believe that the reactionary kind of metrics from last year are not giving enough credit to Toronto defensively. And I think they might be a bit better. And I do worry that they're also not giving enough of a downgrade to just how bad this Montreal defense might actually be defensively. Not only because their defense, as you mentioned, all the names, and probably a lot of people listening were like, who? Who's the Weidman and Harbor Jackeye? Those are names. Okay. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I think Harbor Jackeye is going to be a really fun guy too. And I'm really, really rooting for him as well. But could he make a mistake here opening night? I don't know. So I don't know. If I was going to put in a bet though on it, I would just add the over 6.5, because assuming that Montreal can keep this close, I don't think it's good to also assume that they just don't allow Toronto to score at all. I think it's more that they find goals themselves. Just because I think that there are some really good, there's a lot of good finishers on this Montreal team. That's really what they have. They go out and they get a guy like Kirby Dach. They go out and they get Sapkowski and Monahan, I know are the biggest names, but they get guys that I think can distribute okay, and hopefully can get a renaissance with a guy like Monahan, two of these really good shooters that I think could beat Matt Murray. I'm willing to consider plus 240 bet on the over 6.5 with Montreal plus 1.5, just 5-4 game, maybe it goes to overtime. Maybe you even add the tie if you want to really, really boost your odds, or the regulation tie, obviously not the game, that doesn't exist. But as I just said, Sean Monahan, he's plus 475 to score. It's disgusting, but he is first power play net front. And you could convince me that Cole Caulfield or Chris Weidman, who's on that first power play, who actually is a pretty good rate shooter from the point, could put one towards the net and he could tip it in. I mean, plus 475 is kind of insane. It's like the same price as some very, very bad players that aren't even in. Like, it's like, ooh, do I want David Kampf or do I want Sean Monahan? I know Monahan's been bad. I know it's ugly, but he is on the second line. He is on the first power play. He's net front. And when you're net front on a power play, you could score at any time. And I can't, off the top of my head, do the math on that, but it might not be the smartest play in the entire world, but you could definitely do something stupider tonight with your money than just assume that Monahan. And what a great feeling it would be to hit that bet and watch him score against Toronto to start the year. I don't know. I'm going to consider it. It's going to be there. I don't think it's the best odds of any goal scorer, but it is one that it's going to get completely overlooked because no one's going to go that far down the line, and no one probably even cares about their power play. So that's one to consider. Other than that, anything Austin Matthews related is very much in play. He's far and away the highest projected player on the slate. Over 4.5 plus money, I'm probably going to take it because I have him for more shots than that. And he is a guy that can do that really, really easily, especially if this game could be closer than meets the eye. He'll be on the ice a bit more. I think we have him for about 5 shots on goal. So at plus money for 4 to get the 5 when the math is leading to me to that's a good bet. I really do trust it. Yeah, we have him for 4.77. So I mean, it's not a huge edge, but it's plus money and it's Austin Matthews, and that always feels really, really good. He's the best rate shooter in the league. So I'd be taking that, and then Caulfield over 2.5 as well. Those are probably the two. You could take him for a point. I think you look through these player props in this game, if you like the over, you're just going to be salivating. I don't think I want to name them all, but I think that the best math is Austin Matthews over 4.5 and probably Monahan to score at, plus 475.
Yeah. Caden Goalie leading the blue line tonight for the Montreal Canadiens. That's where we're at with their defense coming in. And he's a nice little young player, and he's going to be probably someone that's going to be a solid NHL defenseman, but we're putting him in the top pair. I mean, Goalie is the appropriate word. That's ghoulish right now that Montreal's got this as a blue line here to begin the year. No Matheson is really hurting them. He's really one of the stable members of that blue line, and Joel Edmondson too, for that matter, IR as well to begin the year. So that's why it's going to be a very young. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be sloppiness with the puck. There's going to be everything you can think of with this Montreal blue line. And now they've got one of the most potent teams that they got to try to shut down. Shot suppression, goals against is probably going to be an issue for them coming into the year. So as DJ mentioned, maybe some shots props with the Leafs, definitely very live tonight against this Montreal team. All right, we've come to the Alex's favorite team. They might put them through the ringer this year, but nevertheless, here we go. Chicago Blackhawks, Colorado Avalanche, Colorado minus 410 home favorites, 6.5 being the total in this game. Look, I'm going to put this to the test right away. With this theory, I'm on Avalanche team total over 4.5 here tonight. I'm just going to go with that. Could Chicago help the game go over the full game 6.5? But quite possibly. But I'm just going to bank on Colorado doing their thing here tonight and finding the back of the net. We kind of hinted at this in the season preview show, Alex and I. Opponents' team total overs against Chicago are probably always going to be something to consider and worth a look. Now, are you getting a bargain here, 4.5? No, you're not. But I think it's a situation where you're playing, obviously, an absolutely lethal Colorado team. That's a concern for this Chicago team. No question about that. How are you going to defend, the likes of Rantanen, Lehkonen, McKinnon, who, look, even though Landeskog's out to begin the year, I mean, you put Arturi Lehkonen in that spot, who's more than capable. Had a great playoffs last year as well for the Avalanche. Had a great, really run ever since they got him from Montreal. And again, you look at head-to-head last year for the last year, it was an issue for Chicago in terms of trying to shut this team down. Obviously coming into the year, Luke Richardson, tough situation. Kane and Taves likely at some point on their way out. The Chicago's got to get good performances, consistency every night from Domi, Athanasiou. They got Taylor Radish from Tampa Bay last year. These are guys that are going to have to get it done. All right, this ain't the try league; it's the get it done league. And if they're going to be any sort of, if they're going to avoid getting wiped out on a nightly basis and win games, they need those 3 guys to be offensive difference makers. It can't just fall on Kane every single night, especially when you see in the bottom 6, Kurashev was kind of up and down. You didn't always get consistency from him last year. I like Colin Blackwell, but he's, two ways of the ice more so than just offensively. But yeah, Kurashev's someone I'm looking at the third line. More than 6 goals required, in my opinion, from him. And that's all we got from him, obviously, last year. The blue line, it's tough. Jack Johnson is still someone that's got a little gas in the tank, but they're putting him on the top pair. He's not a top pair defenseman anymore. He's just not. Seth Jones, not a good season last year. Tenorti for some muscle. Hey, it's going to be fun to watch Jared Tenorti throw the weight around and maybe drop the gloves a few times. That's something to look forward to if you're Chicago. Connor Murphy, can he stay on the ice? You got Philip Roos, is someone they signed way back in the spring, actually. Played over in Europe, the Swedish league. Recently, they're going to have to hope he gives them something on the back end of that blue line, because they're without Caleb Jones, and Jake McCabe's the big one. He's one of the few that were really good, solid, sound, sturdy defenders in their own zone. DJ knows him well from the Buffalo Sabres days, but Jake McCabe also out to begin the year. And then you've got arguably the worst tandem in the NHL from a goaltending standpoint. I shouldn't say that. When Mrazek's on his game, he's very good, but you don't always get him on his game. And then it gets hurt. And then when he's not hurt, he's not always consistent. And then Alex Stalock, who, we think he's just collecting a pension, or so we hear, maybe at this stage of his career. So tough times for Chicago. We think they're going to be just hideous at times, keeping the puck out of their own net. So I'm going to take a small shot here. Colorado, a team total over 4.5. It's the only pregame action I've got really on this one, side and total wise, other than props, and I'll mention a couple in a second. Alex, what do you think here, Chicago, Colorado?
Yeah, personally, I have no plays on this game whatsoever, but people in the chat were we're going to the right theory. The way to attack Hawks games this year is going to have to be, Ian, as you mentioned, opponent team totals over, which is something I don't really like too much for tonight. Do like it more tomorrow for against Vegas, because we're going to see Peter Mrazek start tonight. More likely going to see Alex Stalock start tomorrow. So Stalock, fading Stalock with the team total over is probably going to be something I'm going to do for a good chunk of his starts, at least of the early starts that he gets. But as far as with tonight, looking at same game parlays is the way to go. Tying in Avalanche to win, or Avalanche puck line with some different props. Patrick Kane to score a point. Like I said, he's by leaps and bounds the best offensive player on the team. And this is a offense that has been shut out in 3 of the last 4 preseason games. They're going to want to try and get things rolling. I wouldn't be shocked if we see them really stack the power play lineup pretty heavy, which of course will mean Kane at the point. So that's something I would probably look at to attack if I were to bet on this one. But I'm just going to stay away from it. I'll watch it, of course, but it's just a matter of how ugly does it get for the Hawks. It's not how much with Colorado, but it's just one of those things where this game could get out of hand in the first period, or it could be kind of low and slow, especially with the banner ceremony as well for Colorado. Usually this is a spot where we like to kind of fade these teams, but there's no way you can back the Hawks with how bad of a lineup they have. Maybe Colorado takes it, a little easy in the first period, and then we see things ramp up, and maybe there's some live betting opportunities. But as far as pregame goes, there's nothing worth really touching for me.
Spread the wealth with Colorado props. I mean, Lehkonen for sure, I'm interested. Val Nichushkin, big Val Nichushkin, how much I was betting props with him down the stretch. And keep an eye on Alex Newhook. Jared Bednar has faith in him taking over the number 2 center spot. He might be someone to look at because they think he's ready for this opportunity. Evan Rodriguez showed you what he could do in Pittsburgh when he has that opportunity and more ice time as well. So a lot of good options right there that I just mentioned. Rodriguez, Newhook, Nichushkin, Lehkonen in particular for the props up front for the Avalanche. Of course, you've got the best defense 1 through 6 in the NHL. There's no debate, in my opinion, with that. Devon Taves, Cale Makar, Sam Girard, Josh Manson, Bo Byram, Eric Johnson. You know how good that blue line is 1 through 6 when they're fully healthy. That's incredible what they've got. Colorado, embarrassment of riches with that blue line. DJ, what do you think? Chicago, Colorado.
Yeah, this one I think you guys covered well. I almost always, when I see anything plus 300 or more, put at least half a unit on it, because hockey's really random, and it's normally just a better way of betting in general to take those, especially when winning a game. Like the percentages just lead to it, right? Like if you did the actual implied odds and you took all the math and whatever, I'm not going to do it on opening night. I'm not going to do it on the cup banner raising ceremony night. I think this Colorado team has a lot of pride, and I'm just not going to waste my time. I think that anything that you are going to want to bet at plus money in this game besides some player props, you could just be better served by playing daily fantasy. So I'm just not going to do it. I will probably have a lineup with 4 or 5 Colorado guys, because if they scored 5, 6, 7 goals, I'd rather go for 25,000 than double my unit. Like, just the way I look at it, like if that does happen and you have the 3 or 4% of daily fantasy lineups with 5 guys on Colorado, and it fits. It does fit, actually. You could do Nertushkin, Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar. I have no interest in the goalie here, Georgiev. Like, that's the only way Chicago keeps this close, is if he starts and he sucks. I don't think he's going to see a ton of volume. He was really, really bad in preseason. So it's the only avenue you could talk me into if you were going to bet anything on Chicago, is just like, man, all of their players are like infinitely unlikely to score, says the book. Well, what if they score 3? What does that look like? I mean, you could talk me into that like existing, but I'm just not interested. Props. Lehkonen is just probably the biggest misprice he's been for a long time. He just continues to be. It's as if they just cannot catch up to the fact that he is on the first power play and the first line with McKinnon and Rantanen. Doesn't really make any sense when you see that the lines are just completely off. And I know that McKinnon and Rantanen are much more likely to be the guys to score or have the first assist, but the second assist is, you could just, anyone that's on the ice could have that. Like, it's very, normally it's going to be a guy like a McKinnon who skates the puck in the zone who gets the second assist, because he'll pass it off to a guy like Lehkonen, who then gets it to Rantanen. Like, that's kind of how I look at it, where like Lehkonen is a good player. He's going to be he's on the first power play. They're, almost minus money to have 4 goals. And I think they are minus money for 4, and like right around the 5 mark is where they're looking at. This guy isn't going to have a single point. Come on, minus 140. I mean, that's disrespectful. I want to call him up and tell him how much the books are disrespecting him, and he needs to go out and perform, because I think I put 4 units on it because it's just a wrong price. Definitely my favorite bet on the entire slate. Anything else?
He needs to be closer to minus 200 to score a point, closer to that at
Yes,
least. When you factor in first power play, you factor in the team they're playing, who's going to be a defensive sieve, we think, this year. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally off. So that's really where I'd go. I'd rather just put more money into that than put it somewhere else, just to spread the wealth, to spread it. Like, I just take what the book's giving you. And then if you are just enamored by Colorado, which most people are, DraftKings Sportsbook, you go to Underdog Fantasy and draft a super stack like I've done a couple times. There's a lot of other avenues to get way more money if they score 6, 7 goals than DraftKings tonight, or any sportsbook for that matter.
So let me explain why I pivoted to Colorado team total over. And I agree with Alex that, I'm betting it. I think it's got a good chance that Colorado gets to 5. But the concern is, it is Mrazek. He's still definitely the better of the two compared to Stalock. The reason I pivoted from the team total over instead of over 6.5, even because people were concerned about Georgiev for Colorado, that he didn't play well in the preseason. But his final preseason start, guys, for Georgiev was against Dallas, a 2-1 win. He stopped 32 saves on 33, made 32 saves on 33 shots. He had the full Colorado lineup playing in front of him that night, which he did not have in a few of the other games earlier in the preseason. So with the full lineup on the ice against Dallas in that final preseason game, Georgiev looked very good. And in fact, he made 18 saves in the first period alone. And in fact, they said he was really good, and actually kept Dallas off the board at a very good clip. So that's why I caution everybody about this narrative about, Georgiev sucks. He was terrible in the preseason. Not in that final start. He was a lot better when he had the full opening night lineup on the ice in front of him in that final preseason start. So make sure you are aware of that. But doesn't mean he's going to play great tonight. But again, if he had that final good preseason start, and it was with, basically the opening night lineup playing for Colorado. All right, next up, should be a good one here. Vancouver and Edmonton. We've got the Oilers minus 185, home favorites here, 6.5 the total in this game. Early on, before, I was formulating opinions, you're doing your work. I think Vancouver's going to be an improved team this year. And I was maybe thinking Vancouver is a dog in this spot, but they're just too banged up. There's just too many key personnel out of the lineup here early on for the Vancouver Canucks. Brock Besser, it looks like Brock Besser here might be able to go tonight, but he's been battling injury throughout the preseason. No question about that. Connor Garland as well. And then, of course, you've got a couple. Ilya Mikheyev's the big one for sure, that he's going to be out long-term on IR, at least for some period of time, week to week, because of an injury he suffered in preseason. And that's someone who I was very excited to see in a Canuck uniform after the way he played for the Maple Leafs last year. Ilya Mikheyev was another one of those players. We got on the player prop bandwagon with him down the stretch, and it paid off. And I think he's going to be a nice fit here for this top six with the Canucks, but unfortunately on IR to begin the year. And then you've got two projected starting defensemen, Travis Dermott, Tyler Myers, starting the year on injured reserve for the Canucks. That's not already a depth lead, and that is not a depth-laden blue line when they're fully healthy. And now, you got to put in Kyle Burrows, you got to put in Riley Stillman, you got to move Tucker Poolman, who didn't have a great season last year, up to the second pair with Oliver, as Don Cherry calls him, lost him, toss him. Ekman Larson, that never gets old. Luke Shen and Quinn Hughes on the top pair. Luke Shen on the top pair. What is this, 2010 when he just got drafted, or 2008, whatever the fuck it was, and he's on the top pair now? Wow. So that's concerning, because now that blue line as a collective. Yeah, good luck against McDavid, Draisaitl, Vander Kane back in the fold once again, Hyman as well. McLeod took steps forward last year, and I took a small shot on this kid who's now going to be starting the season tonight for Edmonton on their second line, Dylan Holloway. A small shot on him to be the Calder Trophy winner, Rookie of the Year. I think it was a 35-1 price. I think he's going to have a nice year. Jay Woodcroft had nothing but glowing things to say about the 21-year-old. He had a hat trick against this Vancouver Canucks team in a preseason game against them about a week ago. And Dylan Holloway is one of my favorite props in this game, without question, because you're going to get better numbers, better price with him than, say, McDavid's and Hyman's and Kane and all of those guys. He had a terrific preseason for the Edmonton Oilers. He's going to get the minutes. He's going to get the opportunity. He's going to end up, playing on that second line tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. So keep an eye on this guy, Dylan Holloway, for the Edmonton Oilers. He had a good preseason. He lit it up, got goals. He got a bunch of points. I think he had 8 or 9 points in the preseason for this Edmonton Oilers team. And it looks like they've got him. Jay Woodcroft's going to put him out on the second power play unit as well tonight for Edmonton. So, yeah, Dylan Holloway is your big-time bargain bin value player prop for the Edmonton Oilers tonight, in my opinion, in this game. As far as the side and the total goes, though, I'm probably going to leave it alone. Be careful with these 6.5s with Edmonton this year with the totals. Jack Campbell is a better goalie than probably Smith and Koskinen on a consistent basis. And Edmonton's defensive structure and just team structure defensively improved leaps and bounds under Jay Woodcroft last year. So don't necessarily assume Edmonton's going to be this over machine this year. They certainly are going to still be potent offensively, especially in the top 6, but they improved defensively quite a bit. Barry, Ceci, Darnell Nurse, that whole group played out of their minds good defensively at times in the playoffs until they ran into Colorado. So don't be running a rush always to bet overs with Edmonton games at the 6.5. Alex, what are you liking here? Canucks Oilers.
Yeah, and I agree. When you look back at the 4 meetings last year, all 3 of them, or 4 of them, went under the total. 3 of them actually going into overtime or a shootout. Vancouver's played Edmonton pretty tough over the years, and as good as Edmonton is, and especially the improvements they've made this year, like you said, how banged up Vancouver is to start the season. This is just one of those kind of games I'm going to stay away from. I was trying to look and make a case for Oilers' first period on the puck line, laying the half a goal. I could see them getting out of that period with the lead. But even with that, I think, if they, Vancouver's going to want to try to slow things down, obviously. That's the way you beat Edmonton. If they can do that early, then, it might take Edmonton a little bit more time to kind of get geared up. So this is definitely a live game for me. I probably won't touch anything pregame, and I might look for, like I said, see where the pace of play is going, and then jump in with a full game total, either over or under, based off of that.
Yeah, no question. It's going to be, Demko in net. I think he's going to have a great season. We saw what he's capable of last year. I agree with that, Jarrett. Good to see you in the chat. Certainly Demko going to have a good year. Like I say, Holloway for Oilers. I'll give you one for Vancouver. Andrei Kuzmenko, the guy they signed out of the KHL. And this is a guy that had a nice preseason for Vancouver as well. I think he had 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in 3 preseason games for Bruce Boudreau and the Canucks. That's someone to keep an eye on tonight for player props for them is Andrei Kuzmenko, and he's going to be getting on that second line with Elias Pettersson, Niels Höglander. That is the current alignment as of right now, and he's expected to get not just power play time. So I see him on the first unit tonight on the power play with Pettersson, Horvat, Hughes, and Miller. So Andrei Kuzmenko is going to be given a great opportunity here for Vancouver. That's a good player prop to score a goal, to score a point. Same with Holloway on the Edmonton side. Great value, I think, those two. What do you think here, DJ?
Yeah, Kuzmenko is going to be more or less my cover boy here. Yeah, he's so talented. And this is actually a rookie, if you will, in the NHL that's aged out of being a rookie. He's 26. This is not a guy that's never played professional hockey before. It's a guy that's played many years of professional hockey.
Yes.
He profiles to be more like an Artemi Panarin. Saying that he's going to have similar output to Artemi Panarin is egregious probably and not going to happen, but he might not be the greatest straight shooter in the world, but he will pick his spots, and he does, I think, have a better shot in theory than Panarin does. He just might not quite have, I don't know if anyone has the same passing ability as a Panarin. I really like him a lot all around. He is going to be very overlooked in daily fantasy circles. He's actually not even listed on Underdog to draft. I know I'm talking about a site that probably no one knows what I'm talking about, but that's okay. Plus 330 per goal. You know, that's all that matters to me. Not listed for a point, not listed for a power play point on most books. The books don't know who he is. I might reach out to my DK guy and ask if they could put him in, but they'll probably not do it tonight. But I want him in there for the future because I think that he is a guy that really could be a 60 point, 70 point guy this year. Could Besser steal back the power play 1 role once he gets fully acclimated? Yes, but I don't even know if it's his spot that he'll be taking. Like if Kuzmenko is as good as I think he could be and how good he projects to be, they might be kind of moving out another guy, or it might be a case just like Edmonton where you have so many good players that, Jay Woodcroft said, well, who just draws the penalty? If it's Evander Kane's unit on the ice, Hyman's going to go out instead of Evander Kane. If it's Hyman's unit, well, then Evander Kane. Like, I think it could be more of a situation like that where they kind of rotate through who's on the first power play unit. But as long as he's touching that at all, I mean, I'm going to be pretty in on it. This is definitely a case of good goaltenders, really bad defense, really good offense. I shade over, but lightly. I bet it when it was plus money, and I don't know if I want to say I regret betting it at all. I just jumped on it, not thinking fully all the way through. I saw plus money on this game, and I was like, that's got to be it over. What's going on here? And then I kind of dove in, and I'm like, I kind of paid the book for a coin flip. I guess I got plus money at whatever, right? Like let's play that game. But I think it's right on. But this is definitely the game in daily fantasy. I think you want a game stack. If it goes right, I think if you get the right pieces all together, this is the game that even if it only has 6, like you could, in theory, I think capture all of the upside in 6 goals with a guy that scores 2 or 3 multiple 3-point nights could exist on each team. I'm really, really high on like a Pettersson, Kuzmenko, McDavid, Kane, Bouchard. Bouchard, a guy that wasn't practicing on the first power play unit, and then immediately after, Jay Woodcroft's like, oh no, he'll be on the first unit as well. Like, I probably the moment they watch Tyson Barrie suck again, they're going to be like, what were we thinking here? Evan Bouchard. So I'm really still high on Evan Bouchard overall. Not really listed. Another player not really listed on the books for props, but going to keep an eye on him. His rates are super duper good. I think he's going to see more run, more minutes. I think it's going to be sort of like a Darnell Nurse is going to be our top defender and take a lot of D-zone draws. And Bouchard's going to be the top offensive defenseman who's going to take a lot of O-zone draws. I think that's how they're going to kind of work through this season. Vancouver side, I think you covered most of it. There's no amazing standout prop to me. I think there will be shots. So I did take Draisaitl plus 115 at 3.5. I think he's more than likely going to have 3 to 4 right in that range. I'll take the plus money. I think that's fine. Yeah. McDavid minus 155 for 3.5. It just doesn't make me feel good. Now he's with Evander Kane full time. I mean, I know the team and everything you hear out of them is like, we need McDavid to shoot more. Well, guess what? McDavid isn't going to just flip a switch and go from the best playmaker in the NHL that sees the ice almost like no one else to, you know what, I see a passing lane, but I'm just going to shoot that puck instead. Like, he just isn't going to do that. Like, he is going to continue to probably, have games where he has 10 shots on goal and has games where he has 0. And it's going to be, so it's tough for me to really want to, on the opening night, hammer that. I'd rather just go with Draisaitl, who I think is going to see 22, 23 minutes. And at full health again, 3.5 was always a smash. The only times he wasn't hitting it is when he legitimately had an high ankle sprain in the playoffs, which I still don't understand how he played through. Other than that, I think that
he was a warrior. That's why. Yeah. That's how.
We're starting to get goalie props come out. 26.5 for Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
Plus, that seems. I don't know. I think this game will have shots. I'm not sure. I want to run through this stuff now that we're getting goalies, but I think that there could be an edge on that as well.
All right, so good stuff. Vancouver, Edmonton. It's a very interesting game. Like I said, the Canucks to me are improved. I want to look for spots to back them, but I just don't love that the blue line's missing 2 starting defensemen, and I don't like that they're banged up a little bit up front as well against this Edmonton. And it is Edmonton's home opener. Jack Campbell's going to want to play well. It's going to be his first start with his brand new team and that nice contract he got. So it's reasons right there for me at least to lay off Vancouver tonight. All right, final game of this Wednesday slate, Seattle Kraken, Anaheim Ducks, Anaheim -120, home favorites, 5.5 the total. So as I mentioned in the season preview show, one of my favorite season win total bets was Anaheim over 79.5. I really think this team's going to be better this year. I love what I see up front with this group. I like that it's a nice little eclectic mix, if you will. Adam Henrique, you got a veteran there on the top line playing with Zegras, who's going to be good to go. There was some worry that he may not play tonight, but he'll be on the top line center spot. Zegras, Henrique, Frank Vetrano, Frank the Tank, someone that with Florida, with the New York Rangers, good player, goes to the front of the net. He'll try to drive the net, open up lanes for his line mates. That's what you like to see. Plays that north-south style. You've got Troy Terry, Ryan Strome, also brought in from the New York Rangers in the offseason. Hopefully that guy can finish more of the zillion chances that he got, obviously, in the playoffs last year with the Rangers. Hopefully he's got a little bit better puck luck here in Anaheim. And watch out for the rookie that I think could end up being your Calder Trophy winner. He's the favorite to win the Calder Trophy, Mason McTavish. He's ready for the NHL. Simple as that. I mean, if you watch this guy play, he's so good in all areas of the ice. Offensively, solid in terms of away from the puck, physical presence, great shot, great release, great vision, play make, go to the front of the net. He does it all. And he's going to be a great player for a long time for this Anaheim team. That's just their top 6. What if Maxime Comtois stays healthy, gets his offense up to the level we think he's capable of delivering? Isaac Lundestrom, someone that really started to percolate late in the season. Jakob Silfverberg, still a veteran. His offense is diminished, don't get me wrong, in recent years, but now he's on a third line where he could take you by surprise. Max Jones, Derek Grant, good fourth line, a forechecking type of role there with that group. The blue line with Cam Fowler, with John Klingberg, who they bring in from Dallas, one of the top 10 defensemen probably in the league, certainly puck moving, skating wise, and offensively, that's for sure. Kulikov, Jamie Drysdale is just only going to get better. One of the cornerstone blue liners for Anaheim. They bring in Beaulieu, who gives them depth. Kevin Shattenkirk still here. And, they've got Vakanainen out who they got from Boston, a couple other defensemen, and yet they're still fine, in terms of their 6 defensemen, in terms of they've got guys that have been in the NHL a long time that are playing there on that third pair, Beaulieu and Shattenkirk. I think Anaheim, like I say, they're going to be an improved hockey team. It comes down to Gibson. John Gibson had his worst year as a pro by far, no question, in net last year. He's got to bounce back from that. We will see if he's capable of doing that. Anthony Stolarz remains the backup goalie for Anaheim. So I'm really high on Anaheim. I'm not fading Anaheim here tonight. But I also think Seattle's going to be better. Grubauer can only be better in net. It was a disappointing year from him. The blue line, Dunn, Larson, Oleksiak, Schultz, Susie, Borgen. Unlike last year, they're pretty much healthy to begin the season. And up front, they added some offense. Andre Burakovsky, Oliver Bjorkstrand. It's going to help them offensively. Scoring goals was a chore for them at times last year. And that means Eberle and Donato, who they relied on too much at times last year, they can slide into third line role with Shane Wright, who I think's got an axe to grind with everybody, including Montreal. It didn't take him number 1 overall. And Matty Beniers, to me, looks like he is more than ready for the National Hockey League. 4 goals in the preseason for the Seattle Kraken in just 4 games, centering that top line. A lot of props here I like in this game. Terry, Zegras, McTavish, I think, could be a look. for Seattle, Matty Beniers is definitely my favorite look in terms of player props with what we saw from him in the preseason. Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand, I think, because they're new members of this team, they've got offensive upside. They're going to be in the top 6. They're going to want to make an impact. And I think they've got the potential to do so. So I like the over here in this game at 5.5. I do. I think Seattle is going to be able to score more goals this year. I like Anaheim up front a lot. Gibson, I think, can be better, but will we see it in game 1? That's a question. Same with Grubauer. Grubauer was not good last year. He's got a lot to prove. So I like over 5.5, maybe a small sprinkle as well on the team total for Anaheim in this game as well, which you can get currently at around 3.5 at a plus price. Alex, what do you think here in this divisional Pacific Division battle, Seattle-Anaheim?
I got to go with the old not so fast, my friend. I like this game to go under. And you can find there's a couple of 6s floating around. You can get under a 6 at even money. I definitely like that. But I played under 5.5 at plus 110. Seattle kind of has a team that they wanted to have last year. They are going to be a lot more responsible defensively. We saw in the preseason a lot of the games were very low scoring. Grubauer seems to be back in the form after dealing with his injuries and so forth. And I think he's going to actually have a much better season this year, as will John Gibson. I talked about it in the season preview. Gibson's one of those goalies on my radar. I think that, now that the schedule is kind of back to its regular format, he's a guy who, had to play a lot of minutes, got worn down, battled through injuries. I think now he's, resting well enough. I think we're going to see him get back to his top tier form in this season. Overall for the year, yeah, I think Anaheim definitely has a lot of talent, and they could be one of those sneaky teams that go under the radar. Definitely some good value to bet on from a nightly basis. And even Seattle, they'll be much better than they were last year. Obviously, an expansion team, first few games just had a bit of a rocky start. They never found their footing. I think they've found their footing now. They're going to be a solid two-way team. And Anaheim, it's going to take a little bit more time for them to get, to be one of those just top offensive clubs. So I like this one to go under the total. Like I said, look for those 6s. I see DraftKings, a couple of shops have 6. So I'm going to go under 6 at even money as my play.
All right, like an under 6 in some spots, 5.5 in others. So if you like the under, make sure you shop around and get the 6 if it's out there and if you can find it. So I like that. We don't disagree a shit ton on this show, but it's nice to have that every now and then.
Yeah.
That differing.
And it works out perfectly because if you like over, the over, you got 5.5. So if you like the unders, you got 6s. So it's you have that overlay often, and you're probably not going to get that too often because 5.5 are going to be, the way of the dodo, especially if this game were to go over, we probably won't see that many 5.5s with either one of these teams moving forward.
Yeah, and Anaheim, I lean Anaheim minus 120, but I'm already invested in the point total, over 79.5. So I'm just going to cheer that on throughout the year. The spots I'm looking to bet on Anaheim individual games is when they're bigger plus prices against teams that may overlook them. Some good to above average, some average to above average to good teams. There's going to be nights when those teams play Anaheim and Anaheim just takes them by surprise because they've got the talent to do it now, especially up front, and then adding Klingberg on the back end. This is not the right price for me, and I do think Seattle's going to be better too. So that's why I'm not laying the $120 tonight with Anaheim. DJ, what are you thinking here? Kraken-Ducks.
Yeah, I mean I really again. I think a lot of the pricing to start the year is pretty correct because we haven't learned anything from a lot of these teams, and I think these are two teams that we learned kind of the least through preseason because when you watched or looked at anything from Seattle, it was like, okay, what is their starting lineup now? Because it looks like they have 7 lines that could be in the mix, and it was like always very confusing. Now they looked fantastic defensively. They looked awesome. I mean, they won like the first 3 preseason games, like 4-0. I think they were all the same score, and people started to get a little bit high on them. Is that indicative of what's going to happen tonight? No, I don't really buy it. I mean, I didn't look through those games exactly, but I know a couple of them were worse AHL quality teams and they had NHL quality players. So I don't want to go crazy overboard with anything. I think that this game is priced on the nose. I think over 5.5 was like probably about right. I mean, that was right about, like, I have it right there. Like, that's where I got it. And like, I think that until we see something new, it's hard for me to want to say, okay, I know what these teams are doing now because so many new players on both teams. You rattle up, you're like, oh, this team has 9 new players and this team has 8 new. It's like, yeah, no, these teams are brand new. It's a lot of new guys in a lot of different situations. I mean, like, I bet if you went up to 10 hardcore hockey fans and said, all right, who is the first power play defenseman for Seattle tonight? You would get a lot of different answers. It's Justin Schultz, right? I mean, like, again, like you probably asked 10 hockey fans where Justin Schultz was playing this year. They'd be like, huh, I forgot about that, right? So, like, I really do think that the ambiguity of this game with the players and where they're slotted in is where I'd rather take advantage of. The number one player that I want to be early to is Matt Beniers because I truly think he is going to be a difference maker. Plus 300 to score is just an incorrect line. I'm just going to take it.
That's insane.
That's
Crazy.
Okay,
that was even
right.
with Kaliev last night, plus 460. And
Yeah,
look what he was doing in the preseason.
They don't seem to want to.
460.
DraftKings and really FanDuel's probably even more egregious on this, but they will just put lines out there like that where you just have to bet them. I mean, if Matt Beniers is what we think he could be, and we get plus 300 now, and it won't move very quickly, like we're gonna be kicking ourselves if we didn't take it. Looking at their lineup, I also think that he's just kind of the focal point of the first line. He'll be with McCann, who I know it could be a rate shooter, but as long as he's not with Bjorkstrand, I think that he is just clearly they're separating him from the other best shooter on the team. With that being said, Bjorkstrand over 2.5, I'm going to be in on. The only issue with betting shot totals and betting a lot of shot totals with Seattle is Hextall is a terrible coach. He should have been fired after the first game that he coached for Seattle. They should have watched him do a terrible job and said, get out of here. If he rolls 4 lines, which he in theory can do, like he has in the past, I'm going to cry because I think Seattle has some really, really good under the radar players that could see massive amounts of shot volume if they get enough minutes. Bjorkstrand's going to be the guy that if you run the iCourse per 60 all year long like I do, he's just going to continue to show up. Does he get the minutes? Opening night, I'm going to roll with it because I'm hoping that he sees him and Beniers are going to be the power play 1 shooters. I'm going to bet on that. I'm hoping that this power play trend sticks. Whether they score or not is beyond me. But as long as they're shooting, I'm going to be happy. Gibson is a great goalie. I think that like I was also very high on him bouncing back. I think that Grubauer, if he's worse, they're completely screwed. I mean, he couldn't be worse. If he's worse, then he really shouldn't even play in the AHL. Like he was that level of that. Yeah. So he has to be better. There almost isn't another scenario that could exist for him other than being demoted. And then lastly, Troy Terry, first and foremost on DraftKings, if you're playing lineups, he's like 3,400, just priced well. Like he's like 1,000 cheaper than Petrano. I don't understand that price. He is their best offensive player as far as scoring. I bet if you just took the odds of likelihood to score from the sportsbook and transfer that over to like the price on DraftKings, you'd be like, all right, he is standalone. Him and Jarvis and Kuzmenko are, well, Kuzmenko is not even that crazy, but like him and Jarvis are the clear punts. The punt defenders, like I said, Schultz, you can definitely get a lot of value out of this game in daily fantasy. I don't want to go into too much detail because probably most people listening don't even make lineups for daily fantasy. But if you do, there's a lot of value in this game, especially with all of these games kind of feeling like a 6 total is about right. So why not this game be the one that accidentally gets to 7 or 8, right? And you get a lot less ownership. But Bjorkstrand, Terry, and Beniers are kind of the 3 players I'm mainly focusing on here. I know Zegras is a bit of a sexier player in general because he's just really, really fun, but I don't see the same rate stats. I don't see the same finishing ability quite yet. I think it's coming together. So I'd rather go with others. Petrano, as I already mentioned, plus 260 could be interesting. I want to kind of see their power play run first because I'm almost convinced it's actually going to be Mason McTavish on the first unit. And if Petrano isn't on that first power play, it's really going to hurt. But I think he'll play with Zegras at 5-on-5. That might be enough. But getting actual good reporting out of Seattle, not Seattle, Seattle actually has really good reporters now. Yeah. Out of Anaheim is literally pulling teeth. So we don't know. Mason McTavish, I watched him in preseason, and one game they didn't have him on either power play, and then the next game he was on the first unit with all the starters. So we're going to see. I'd rather wait on him though, and get early on Beniers at almost the same price to score. So we'll see. And then other than that, I don't think there's a lot of edge. If you can somewhere find Justin Schultz for a point or albeit a power play point, I mean, if you find that, please DM me because I want to find that myself because it's probably going to be like plus 800. And I really want to find him for a power play point when no one in the world seems to know he's on their first unit over Vince Dunn.
All right, great analysis. DJ with the great analysis with the player props, the line combos. He is on top of that. I am too. I definitely try to be, but DJ's right in step with me. Every time we have him on the show, he's like right on all the line combos, just right alongside me. It's great to see. And mentioning how this could be the one game that accidentally gets to 7 or 8 goals. Well, that would make one of us happy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's the opening night and anything can happen. And again, like, well, I mean that from a daily fantasy perspective when, and again, I don't want to go to, but using game theory, if you don't know what I mean by that at all, just using the theory that you're playing against other people. What are the other people doing? What is the field going to do in this scenario? How many people are going to play 4 guys from this game when you have Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon, Pasternak, and Ovechkin? Like, no one. So if this game is that game where the goaltending just, springs a leak on both sides,
and the pucks are going in. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what? Like, even if you just took the sportsbook odds, what are the odds this game goes over 8 goals? Maybe the implied odds are 12, 13%. Well, if that 12 or 13% happens, which again, it happens all the time, 12, 13% type of thing hits. You see these massive parlays that hit at like 0.0001%, but why not 13%? If that happens, you could win $25,000 rather than, so that's kind of how I like to play fantasy, is like, turn off your sports book mind, your median outcome mind, turn on your maximum, how could I actually try to capture all of the money in a contest? And I've been really
things that could happen that aren't represented in the marketplace.
I've been successful to start the year. I've been successful on my career with daily fantasy, and all of these things that I talk about with hockey, with game theory, go right to football. And I do the same thing in football. And that's why the only way I've been profitable with football, because props I've not done a ton of. I think that it's really hard to be successful with those. But daily fantasy football, same thing. So if you ever want to find out more, just join my Discord. It's free, or you can DM me or ask me questions and stuff. And I've done I mean, just do a podcast about daily fantasy again. I feel like we should get another theory-based podcast out there.
Well, I want to do a million podcasts about a million things, and for me, the fucking issue is always not enough time. Not enough time. Not enough hours in the day.
I love talking about like the theory behind betting and the theory, and like I know most people don't really care. They're just like, give me the freaking plays. But I love talking about that stuff. So we should, I don't know, if you want to do one sometime, we can do more of a theory-based betting show. And I'm hoping to show this stuff. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm really hoping to actually have most of what I'm cooking into my bets out there for you to use. It'll come together. It'll make sense later. I'll leave a hint.
The mad scientist in the lab. That's what DJ Mitchell is.
And it's a great different perspective as well too, because like I said, for some of us, I'm not a fantasy player.
Right there. Oh, yeah. The thing in the back, that Cheshire Cat was asking about that. It's a modest mouse.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Good, man.
It's a really weird poster. I like it.
It's of course rock band. We'll all float on.
I just don't know why only Missouri was pink. I didn't get that. I saw them in New York.
Yeah.
Okay, are they from? They might be from Missouri.
No, they're from the state of Washington. I have no idea.
Oh, are they? Oh, okay.
I remember when I got it. I was like, I tried to look it up. I found nothing. So yeah, good poster. I have a lot of posters. I got to hang them up.
There you go. Nice. There's the answer for Cheshire.
Yeah. But no, yeah. So what I was saying though, but DJ, you give a good perspective for someone like for me. I don't play daily fantasy, but to see you kind of combine the two things and just look at things. We always talk about there's more than one way to scramble an egg. So to kind of use that theory and use that kind of viewpoint for betting with sides and totals, it gives another dimension. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's to me, it's some of the best lineups could finish way outside of the money. Like to me, the way I do it, like if I build 10 lineups, all 10 of these lineups have the upside to win, but they also have the upside to absolutely tank. So like, definitely, it's a frustrating game and people give up on it quickly because you could build a ton of really good lineups. You could min cash multiple nights in a row. And then you could lose 2 nights and you're like, well, I'm not even making money anymore. So I found that the people that stick with it, the people that really try to figure it out, and then Matt Moody, my podcast partner, has won tons and tons and tons of money. And again, like he has nights where he loses like $5,000, $4,000, but then he has a night where he wins $50K, and it's like, oh well, who cares? Like now you're back. Like it's a long game, and I think that's why people get out on it because they're like, well, why don't I just go to the sports book where I can probably just make money slowly and then steadily if I'm smart enough. And you can. But if you ever want to learn more about daily fantasy, I do a podcast. Probably the only truly daily fantasy centric podcast, Morning Skate podcast. Let me know.
And that is a common thread with bettors and DFS players. You're going to have huge winning nights. You're going to have huge losing nights. You're going to have wild swings, day to day, week to week, month to month. And you've got to be able to just stick to a process that fits you best and works best for you through the good, through the bad. And that's going to be the key to longevity That's going to be the key to success long term. A great show. Awesome stuff here on this Wednesday. DJ, we'll have him on a bunch of times throughout the season, of course. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us for another edition of the Ice Guys. Hit the like button, of course, if you haven't done so already. 200 live viewers watching on YouTube. We appreciate that. Great show. And, of course, we're here 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. We've got our first live betcast coming up for the new season on Tuesday, October 25th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So no games. So make sure you're aware of that. All right. Great show. Great analysis of the 6 games. Let's get to best bets to wrap it up for a Wednesday. Alex, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
So we'll go to that Boston-Washington game. Like I said, I got a better price than what's available right now. But looking at the 3-way line, you can get the Capitals at even money or plus $1.05. Like I said, these are 2 banged-up teams, 2 teams that are aging and trending downward for the most part. But I think Washington's got a little bit more gas in the tank than Boston. So I'm going to go with the Capitals regulation money line plus $1.05. That's my best bet tonight.
All right, there we go. Best bet for Alex B. Smith, liking the Capitals there. Regulation against the Boston Bruins. DJ, best bet.
Yeah, Terry Lehkonen over. He's going to have 1 point. I would be really, really, really I'd be really mad if he didn't. He is first power play, first line. He's actually really good. But you could stick me out there with McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar, and I could probably get a point by accidentally against Chicago. So, yeah, it's minus 140, so it's probably a bit better as a parlay piece, and I'm definitely going to put it with a few different things. So if you want the other one to put it with, I really like Morgan Riley over a point as well, minus 120. That gets you, up into pretty good plus money range on 2, I think, very likely outcome bets. As far as money lines, puck lines, and stuff, I don't think there's anything that's overly there's not a lot of edge on any of it. I think a lot of it's cooked in early in the year. A lot more people are betting. Those lines are actually moving correctly. And I think you're kind of paying the books to place a bet is how I've been putting it. Like, you're like, here's my money to allow me to place a bet that doesn't actually have an edge. And I think that it's really pretty close to exactly where they have it. So I'm not going to take any probably tonight on either side.
All right, good stuff from DJ Mitchell on the show today. All right, my best bet here for this show, doing something a little bit different. No side or total best bet like last night. Obviously, we had Vegas, LA over the total. Probably would be Columbus, Carolina over if I had to choose a best bet, but I'm going to go with 2 goal scorer props. 2 goal scorer props tonight. I feel really good about both of them. I'm going to go with, speaking of Columbus, Shinnikov for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's just what did we see? 6 goals from him in the preseason. 6 goals in 6 games. Nobody in the entire NHL scored more preseason goals than Igor Shinnikov of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And tonight in that game against Carolina, you can get the leading goal scorer in the preseason at a terrific price in terms of the anytime goal scorer prop for this game. You can get as high as plus 550 at Caesars. There's plus 500 at PointsBet, plus 500 at Bet99, plus 475 at BetMGM. That's an amazing price for a guy that's had 6 goals in the preseason. He's going to get in the second line tonight for Columbus. Again, we always worry Carolina has the puck a lot. Will Columbus have enough to be able to produce offensively? But I think Shinnikov at that price is great value. No question about that. And the other goal scorer prop, I'm going to believe in Gino Malgin. No, not Evgeny Malkin. Dennis Malgin for the Toronto Maple Leafs, plus 250 for him to score against Toronto. He was lighting it up. He's playing against a Montreal team that's struggled all throughout the preseason to keep the puck out of the net, and is probably going to struggle just as much here tonight as well against this Leaf team. So there you go. 2 goal scorer props for best bet for me tonight. Little change up, something different. Igor Shinnikov, plus 550 goal scorer prop Columbus, and Dennis Malgin, Toronto Maple Leafs, plus 250 goal scorer prop for me with best bets here for this Wednesday edition of the Ice Guys. All right, that'll wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for joining us. We appreciate it. Hit the like button on the way out. For Alex P. Smith, for our special guest, DJ Mitchell, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will talk to you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.